The patrol had taken longer than expected. Captain Lyra stumbled into the refugee camp well past midnight, her boots caked with the red dust of Vara 3's wasteland. The plasma burns on her shoulder had been hastily bandaged in the field, but they still throbbed with each breath she took. The mission had been successful. 3 supply caches secured, 2 reconnaissance drones neutralized, but success always came with a price. The camp was quiet now, most of the lights dimmed to conserve power. Lyra made her way past rows of makeshift shelters, each housing families displaced by the Krell offensive. The war had turned millions into refugees overnight, and humanity had opened its arms to any species fleeing the mechanized terror sweeping through the outer colonies. She had missed dinner. Again. Lyra's stomach growled in protest, but she ignored it. There would be ration bars in her quarters, the tasteless protein blocks that kept soldiers functioning if not satisfied. She had learned long ago to separate hunger from need, to push her body beyond its complaints until the mission was complete. As she approached the medical tent, she needed to have her burns properly treated. A small sound stopped her. It was barely audible, a soft shuffling from one of the family shelters nearby. Lyra's hand instinctively moved to her sidearm before she caught herself. Not every sound was a threat. Not here within the perimeter. The shelter belonged to the Vroktar family. She had escorted them here herself 3 weeks ago, pulling them from the ruins of their colony ship. The Vroktar were a feline species, covered in spotted fur that ranged from gold to deep amber. Their homeworld had been glassed by the Krell in the first week of the war. The father was dead. The mother, Sela, had lost her left arm in the crash. That left 5 cubs ranging in age from what Lyra estimated as 4 to 12 in human years. Rock was the eldest, a serious youngster with dark spots around his eyes that made him look perpetually worried. Those eyes were watching her now. Rock stood at the entrance of their shelter, his small frame silhouetted against the dim glow inside. He studied her with an intensity that made Lyra uncomfortable. Cubs weren't supposed to look at you like that, like they were measuring your soul and finding it wanting. "Captain," he said, his voice carrying the slight growl that marked his species' speech. "You are injured." "It's nothing," Lyra replied automatically. "Just a scratch. Go back to sleep, Rock." The cub didn't move. Behind him, Lyra could see the other cubs huddled on their sleeping mats, their eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Watching. Always watching. Rock stepped forward, and Lyra noticed he was carrying something. A standard-issue ration container, the kind distributed at mealtimes. He held it out to her with both hands, a gesture that seemed formal, almost ceremonial. "You missed dinner," he said simply. Lyra stared at the container. Through the translucent lid, she could see the evening's meal. Protein stew with vegetable supplements, far better than the ration bars waiting in her quarters. Her stomach betrayed her again, growling loud enough for Rock to hear. "That's your food," she said, pushing the container back toward him. "You need it more than I do." Rock didn't take it back. Instead, he set it on the ground between them and stepped back into the shelter. A moment later, he emerged again, this time followed by his siblings. Each cub carried their own ration container. They formed a small line in front of her, and one by one they placed their containers next to the first. None of them spoke. They simply set down their dinners and stepped back, their luminous eyes fixed on her face. Lyra felt something crack inside her chest. "No," she said, her voice rougher than she intended. "Absolutely not. You need this food. You're growing, You protect us," interrupted a smaller cub, her voice high and uncertain. "You bring food to camp. You stop bad machines. That's my job," Lyra protested. "That's what soldiers do." "You are hungry," Rock said with the same calm certainty he had used before. "You protect us when you are hungry. This is wrong." The other cubs nodded in agreement, a ripple of spotted heads moving in the darkness. Lyra looked down at the 5 containers arranged at her feet like offerings. She thought about the calculations she had made 1,000 times. How many calories a soldier needed to function, how to distribute limited resources, who deserved to eat, and who could afford to wait. The math was always clear, always rational, but the cubs hadn't done any math. They had simply seen someone in need and responded. She knelt down, her wounded shoulder protesting the movement, and picked up one container. Just one. The cubs watched her open it, watched her take the first bite. The stew was still warm, seasoned with something that tasted like home, though she couldn't remember which home anymore. "Thank you," she said. The words inadequate but necessary. Rock stepped forward and picked up the remaining containers, distributing them back to his siblings. They settled down right there outside their shelter and began to eat. Together. With her. Lyra ate slowly, savoring each bite not for its taste, but for its meaning. She had spent 3 years fighting this war, had saved countless lives and taken just as many. She had calculated acceptable losses and made impossible choices. She had forgotten somewhere along the way that survival wasn't just about resources and strategy. It was about this. About sitting in the dust with 5 cubs who had every reason to hoard what little they had, and sharing a meal in the darkness. When they finished eating, the cubs collected the containers without being asked. Rock lingered for a moment, studying her again with those 2 old eyes. "Tomorrow night," he said, "do not miss dinner." It wasn't a request. It was an order, delivered with the same authority Lyra used on her own troops. She found herself smiling, the expression feeling strange on her face. "Yes, sir." The cubs retreated into their shelter, leaving Lyra alone in the quiet camp. Her shoulder still hurt. The war still raged beyond the perimeter. Tomorrow would bring new missions, new dangers, new impossible choices, but tonight, she had shared a meal with 5 cubs who understood something that command school had never taught her. That humanity wasn't just about surviving. It was about remembering to eat together. Captain Lyra stood, collected her gear, and made her way to the medical tent. For the first time in months, her hunger was satisfied, and for the first time in even longer, she didn't feel quite so alone. The war would continue. But tomorrow night, she decided, she would not miss dinner.